Welcome to this week's On the Fly. I'm your host, Gene DeFilippo, and our guest this week is Jeramiah Dickey, the very successful director of athletics at Boise State University. Jeremiah, welcome to On the Fly.
Thanks, Gene. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I tell you what, you and I have been able to get to know each other at some clinics and some meetings and all, and I really marveled at some of the things that you've done at Boise State. But before we get there, tell us a little bit about your career, how you got to where you are, because there's a lot of young listeners out here that would like to be ADs, and they like to hear how an AD got to where he or she is at.
For sure. I'm not an outlier. I grew up in an athletic family, and sport was always important to me. My grandfather was the team doctor at UTEP for the great Don Haskins. If everyone's watched Glory Road, and so I grew up around sport in general. And honestly, it was a chance meeting with Mac Rhodes while I was at the University of Texas that really got my career started, and at least the idea that I wanted to become an athletic director. He was, I believe, the senior associate for external, and my mom taught with his wife, and through my grandfather and connections with Coach Haskins, who was still with us at that point. They introduced me, and the rest is somewhat history. I graduated from the University of Texas after changing my degree to sport administration. Interned there and thoroughly enjoyed it, and ended up interning at UTEP to finish my degree requirements, worked my way from marketing into development. And when Mac went to the University of Akron to be athletic director, he brought me with him to oversee fundraising. At that point, I was a 25, 26-year-old young administrator, thought I knew everything, and I did not. Made a lot of mistakes, but it was a great learning experience for me. And at that point, got to meet Hunter Yurachek, who had followed Mac from Virginia, and actually met my wife, who was in marketing and promotions at that point. She oversaw marketing, I oversaw development, and that's where we first met. Ended up following Mac to the University of Houston, and just kept climbing. I always had this goal of becoming an athletic director, and trying to prepare myself for that, and picking up experience along the way. And when Mac went to Missouri, I was fortunate to stay with the University of Houston and Hunter as the deputy AD. Really grateful for both of those individuals in my life and how they've impacted me, not just from a professional standpoint, but more importantly from a personal standpoint, how they're fathers and how important their faith is to them and how they treated people. And I just picked up a lot of good qualities that very much impact me to this day. And when Mac went from Missouri back to Baylor, he called and wanted me to follow him. And at that point, I did not have much Power 5 experience. And I knew that was a box I needed to check, and very much had comfort and faith in Mac and who he was as a leader, and knew we had to go in. And there was a lot of change taking place at that point in time for Baylor. And just really grateful for the experience there, and ultimately opened the door here at Boise State. First time AD. I'm coming up on the end of my fourth season, and it seems, it feels like it's been 20 plus years, but we're making progress, and I'm learning every day. But really appreciate those along the way that have helped me. As I said before, I'm not an outlier, and I'm just really grateful for that process.
And you know what? Being in the athletic director's chair is their dog years. You've really been there 28 years.
Right, for sure.
They're really dog years, that's for sure. Well, Jeremiah, it had to be really exciting. You went from the Mountain West to the Pac-12, and that had to be a lot of change, a lot of money, a lot of resources that you needed to raise. Tell us about that.
Yeah, as an athletic director and coming in this day and age and being a first time AD, I've had to navigate a lot of change. Name, image, and likeness, and collectives, and COVID when I first started, and so I'm getting used to that uncomfortableness. My job is to do what's in the best interest of Boise State and the community I represent, and the institution that we're the front porch of. And so I'm always looking at different opportunities, and we're very fortunate that this opportunity presented itself. And obviously we're still in the Mountain West, and that creates some uncomfortableness through the transition that many others have gone through, and I think it's just part of our industry right now. It's been so positive from a fan perspective, and I can only speak to Boise State, how it's impacted us in terms of our season ticket sales, in terms of our fundraising. And there's a lot that goes into that. We're storytellers, and that's something that I require of our department. And we are the front porch of this state. And I believe this move has really opened eyes that we're not going to settle, and there's a lot more ahead of us. When you look at our industry and how it continues to change, yeah, there's some risk involved, but I also know defining our own expectations leads to epic results. And I'm not one to guarantee success, but I trust my team, I trust our process, and I wanted to align with like institutions, and competitive excellence is important to us. And it was important for all 18 sports that I represent to be represented, and for us to plan the work the plan. And this is just the next step of many, and we still have a lot ahead of us, over the next year and a half, 2 years. And I'm really excited for what the future holds for our Broncos.
You know what? It's a difficult time for an athletic director. I remember when I was at Boston College and we left the Big East to go to the ACC. Took a lot of grief from people who didn't come along with us and whatever. But as you said best, Jeremiah, your job is to do what's best for Boise State. And that move is certainly the best move for Boise State. The thing that people know about Boise, well, they know a lot of things, but something that you have that is very, very rare is that blue football field. And at Boston College, we played in a bowl game there, and we really enjoyed the blue field. I didn't know what it would be like, but I really enjoyed it. Tell us about it and how rare it is.
Well, I have to give a shout out to Gene Blameyer, who you probably know, and had been an
Oh,
athletic
sure.
director for many years here at Boise State and then at San Jose State. And it's really that innovative spirit that drives us as Broncos. Back in 1986, he curiously questioned a process, and it's something that I don't take for granted. It's something we do every day. If you're going to have turf, why does it have to be green? And something as simple as that created a brand that is now not just nationally, but internationally known. Last year alone, we had over 17,000 people come through our stadium outside of an athletic event just to see the blue and get their picture taken. We just got identified for the second year in a row as the number one fan site, and through USA Today, and that's a testament to many before me and the foundation that was created. And the blue is powerful. It differentiates us from many others, and that's something that we are trying to take advantage of, and continue to tell our story around. And it's special, and it really drives a lot of the visiting teams, and those that maybe non-conference specific, that they want to come through and they want to see it. And it becomes that bucket list item for people. I know there's a lot out there in terms of like ducks and geese, and if they dive bomb it, and because they think it's a pond, or we do not have those problems. That's just an urban legend, I guess. But it is powerful, and that's something that we need to continue to build on and grow. We can't just be the blue turf, and we can't just be three Fiesta Bowls. It's important to remember the past, and recognize it, but not to live in it. And my job now is to elevate it, and how do we continue to improve it? And most recently, adding new LED lights and two new video boards, a new sound system this year. We continue to invest. We're very fortunate in a state that we have one FBS institution, which is us, and we do not have to compete with professional sports. And there's not many states like that. And so it allows us to be the front porch of our state and very much represent our state at a high level. And I'm really grateful and proud to be the leader of this institution.
While you're at it, and talking about the stadium, how about the North End Zone project that you have going? That seems really exciting.
Yeah, this was part of a vision that we had with our playbook for success. When I first got here, we did an assessment of all of our facilities, and very grateful for that process. And it really allowed me as a new AD and someone who accepted this job sight unseen to dig in on where I felt like we could improve. And when you think about, you know, the blue turf and football, it's not just one sport that represents what a Bronco is. We have 18 sport programs, 350 plus student athletes, and that north end zone was a space that I felt like we could impact every sport program that we sponsor. And so creating this nutrition space and how we're investing back into all of our sport programs and providing them that resource. It really opened our eyes to we were in that dreaming phase, like what could it be? And then there were ancillary benefits of that, not just how we were impacting all of our sport programs, but the ability to monetize. We had over a 250 person waiting list in terms of the Stickle Sky Center, which is where our current suites and loge boxes and club seats are. And with the amount of growth that our community has had, we needed to create more premium space opportunities. And then in addition to that, like most stadiums, this stadium has been put together over the course of time. We needed to close in the concourse. We needed a 360 concourse that would help us with ingress, egress, and the crowds that we're having. We just sold out all 6 home football games this year, and we're making progress in terms of fan support. And Bronco Nation was strong, and we can always grow. And with the growth of our community, now expecting sellouts, closing in that concourse allowed us to add more concession cells and our point of sales, and allow us to add more restrooms and in a Bronco shop and other areas that we could monetize as we go into this new era of college athletics. And so the facility, it checks a lot of boxes for us. It's a $65 million facility, and we're off and running. We just most recently got approval on our construction plan, and we go to the state board in December for our financing package. And very grateful for campus and their support, and our donors who have really embraced it. And it's always what's next year. And so I'm looking at that facility, but in my mind, I've already somewhat moved on because I know we'll get that done. And now I'm looking at other facilities that we can improve on to provide an elite fan experience.
That's called leadership. That's called leadership. Provide leadership and organization for the group, and you're great at that. While we're talking about football in the field, how about Coach Danielson? 1 loss this year, 3 points to the number 1 team in the country. You have a heck of a team, don't you?
We do. I can't say enough about Spencer, and those student athletes. We have a Heisman candidate in Ashton Genty, and Ash is just a tremendous man off the field. And quite honestly, we probably love him more for that than what he does on it. He represents us at the highest level, and it's the culture that Spencer, really worked hard at building, and considering the timing of all that and how the student athletes have really embraced him. When I first, went a different direction, and those, as those are hard decisions. They gut you. You're impacting not just your student athletes, but your staff, their families, your donor base. And, but as a leader, your job is to make tough decisions. And ultimately I made one. And I remember first talking to Spencer and going into that process, I had no idea that he was my choice. I did a national search, and I told Spencer, I need you to get us to the end of the season. We care about these kids. I want them to have a good experience, and I will keep you posted through this process. And ultimately, I went back to him, and there was interest in applying for the position and interviewing. And I love Spencer. Spencer was interim coach when I got here for maybe 2 or 3 weeks when Coach Harsin left to Auburn. And so I had gotten to know him and just the man he is and was at that time. And ultimately, you go through these processes, and it's important, head, heart, and gut for me. There is no perfection to it. And, I ended up interviewing him along with our committee. And I can't tell you, Gene, how impressive he was for a first-time head coach who had never really interviewed for a head coaching position. Just how he relayed and communicated his expectations and the culture he was going to build, and how the student athlete and was the priority. And that just really impacted me in this day and age where money is becoming a driver, and we know we have to differentiate ourselves, and that culture piece is so important to us as Broncos, and really embracing the past and what we've inherited, but then also building off of that. And Spencer just hit on a lot of different points that as we went through the end of that season and as I interviewed other candidates, he just kept rising. And I can't say enough about him and how he's poured into people like Ashton and other members of our team and the staff. I mean, how he treats our support staff. It truly takes a team, and that's our mentality here. It takes a team. We can't do it alone, and not one individual is going to elevate us, but together we can do epic. And Spencer's really embraced that. And I saw it a lot in the spring. Him going to beach volleyball matches and softball games and gymnastics meets, and it mattered. And you saw our student athletes across the board really embrace him as a leader in football, and not just in football, but our department, I should say. And I think that's important in this day and age. And we've locked arms, and we're big on controlling what we can control. And there's still a lot of season ahead of us, but I'm really proud of him. I mean, you look at what he inherited and the timing of all that, and ultimately going through that process, and the staff that he has around him, and how they've bought in, and how that's dominoed into the student athletes and the fan base. We have a lot ahead of us, but I'm really proud of what he's accomplished and what that team has accomplished.
Yeah, you should be. He's done a heck of a job. Let's get back to the Pac-12 again. Tell our listeners who is going to the Pac-12, when you're going to be able to start play, and anything else that you'd like to tell us about the move.
Yeah, I really appreciate Teresa and our commissioner and the Pac-12, and the work that her and her team are doing. And these decisions aren't easy, and there are a lot of moving pieces to it. And but July 1st, 2026 is when we will be entering the Pac-12, and there's still a lot ahead of us. Currently, Fresno State, Colorado State, San Diego State, Utah State, Boise State, Oregon State, Washington State are currently in the Pac-12, and then Gonzaga, with basketball and all of their sport programs. We still have to add a minimum one team, and that's a continued process. I said plan the work the plan, and that's something that all EDs have really locked in on. And we still have some steps ahead of us, but we feel very confident with what we're building, where we're at, and what it could become. And that's something that I'm bullish on. I feel it puts us in the best possible competitive situation, and we want to compete on a national level. And I believe changes are continuing. They're going to continue to come as we head into the end of this decade. And I think this positions us well for what the future holds for Boise State and college athletics in general.
The Pac-12, or the Pac-10 rather, it just has a real cachet to it. It really does, and it's very evident why you make the move that you made.
I said it earlier, Gene. It's been amazing. The brand and how powerful it is, even though it's gone through a lot of changes. How specifically our fan base here has really embraced that, and what that's going to mean not just for football but all of our sport programs, and how it's impacting us in recruiting at a high level across the board. And we're selling tickets, and there's a different level of momentum and excitement around being a Bronco right now in our state and community. And that's really important, and obviously something of value for us. And I think it's going to set us up well for the future.
Jeremiah, college athletics has probably changed more in the last 3 or 4 years than probably in the last 30. And you, being a great leader and being at the forefront of what's going on rather than at the rear of what's going on, talk to us about the House case. Talk to us about NIL. Anything else that you see in the future of college athletics?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Gene. I mean, the last 3 to 4 years for any athletic director, much less someone new like myself who had never been in AD before, it's been challenging. But we made a decision, early on. We're not going to cry over spilt milk. We're going to buy a new cow. We're going to figure out how to create a path forward for us that will work for all Broncos, and we're going to define our own expectations around that, obviously within the rules. And when you look at the House, there's still a lot uh, to unfold in regards to the settlement, and and I know everyone is gearing up to April when hopefully this thing is done, and we're able to move forward July 1st of next year. But like most things, we can't wait for that to happen. We have to start preparing now, and it really started for us a couple years ago when we were ahead of the game in regards to our NIL space and how we approach that. And actually, we're recognized nationally as one of the more innovative programs in the country. That's important to us. It becomes a competitive advantage for us. We're never going to have what everyone else has, and that's okay. I talked about culture, but there is this money piece that is of importance. And when I look at our industry and what we're currently working on, and this is just my opinion, and it may be shared with by others. I do believe that college football is on this fast track to potentially breaking away from the current model. And what does that mean for us? And I don't know. I can't guarantee what it's going to look like, towards the end of all these television contracts, and what's the NCAA's involvement, and what, how this is going to look. But we can project, and as a leader, I have to be ahead of everything, and I can't wait for things to happen. And that's how we're approaching House. And we are planning for what's next, and we are planning on opting in. And are we going to be at the $22 million, that you hear a lot, hear discussed nationally? Most likely not. But can we have enough? We don't need what everyone else has. We just need what we need, and we need enough to be competitive. And that's what we continue to work on. And I'm so fortunate to have a team around me that is innovative in their approach, and the work that they're doing in this space, and how our collective is working with us, and our foundation, and how we can set up a system where we can revenue share, and that puts onus on us to create more revenue opportunities, and that's important. And so we're continuing to plan the work the plan. That's always our mentality, and I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you that I feel really confident with what we're currently doing, and how we're setting up. It's a little bit different as a state institution. I have a state board, and I want to make sure that we're doing what's right, and we're having to make decisions much quicker than maybe we're used to as an industry. And our industry is very bureaucratic, and there are a lot of committees, and things take time. But one thing the House settlement is, I think, doing for all is forcing athletic directors to ready, aim, fire, and try to get out in front of this, so we are prepared and can hit the ground running come July 1st. And we talked about it earlier with conference realignment and other things we're navigating, North End Zone facility, and how that's going to domino into other facility projects. We have to be ahead of the game. That becomes a competitive advantage to us, and we're going to continue to run out all ground balls, and there's still a lot of moving pieces to this, but I am confident that the House settlement will get approved, and at minimum that we're going to get to revenue share at some point. You're hearing a lot more talk of the NCAA, and what does that look like? And we got to be prepared for that.
It's going to be interesting to see how Title IX will fit into, the House case. It'll also be interesting to see if, without a collective bargaining agreement, there won't be lawsuits allowed from student athletes and agents saying, "Hey, you can't eliminate or cap our NIL money." So we're,
Right.
like you said, we're away from answering it, but or having all the answers to it. But you're definitely ahead of the game.
One, I think that's a great point. Collective bargaining. I firmly believe we will get to collective bargaining. I don't believe the lawsuits are going to stop. The House settlement is one piece of this pie. There's still a lot of moving pieces in regards to Title IX, and representing all student athletes, and what does that look like? And it's requiring us as athletic directors to lean on outside counsel, and get our ducks in a row as it pertains to what could come. We don't necessarily know everything ahead of us, but we know change is inevitable. And my job as the leader is to best position us and be prepared for it when it happens. I do believe in our process. I believe in the counsel that we have and support we have through it. And, in general, I'm in favor of name, image, and likeness and how it was initially drawn up. But I think it's taken on a life of its own with collectives and other things. And I think we're missing some valid uh, points as leaders. You think about what our job really is. My job is to prepare our student athletes for life. My job is to graduate them, and I'm really proud of being, one if not the best, in terms of APR and GPA and our graduation success rate. That is still important to me and us here as Broncos. We want to prepare our student athletes for life, and we can do that in this system and really hone in on how are we utilizing name, image, and likeness and this house settlement and other things to really teach and educate our student athletes on contract law and insurance and financial literacy. And, those are real life examples that these student athletes are now having to engage in as an 18, 19-year-old that is really important to them that will ultimately set them up for life differently than maybe before. And so I see opportunity in everything. I'm a glass half full type guy, and I think there's real opportunity. And I can't say enough about our coaches. Where there's not a lot of complaining, around what's going on. It's what's next. All right, let's figure this out and let's find a positive path forward. We talked about Spencer. It's how he rolls. It's Leon Rice, our men's basketball coach, Gordy, our women's basketball coach, Jim Thomas, who just won a share of the Mountain West regular season championship, on which I'm so proud of him and that team, injuries they've had and how they've shown up. But it's always what's next and how can we help our coaches and relieve some of that pressure and best position them to be competitive across the board nationally. And that's something that is a driver for me and really drives our team to put us in the best position possible as we look to the future of college athletics.
We're out of time on this week's On the Fly. I want to thank our guest, Jeramiah Dickey, the very successful director of athletics at Boise State, for being our guest. I'm your host, Gene DeFilippo. Thanks for your time this time, and we'll see you next time.